All right, it looks like everyone's starting to come in now, so let's go ahead and get this started. My name is Krista Malzone. I am the Community Manager for the CA API Management Community. Len Thompson will also be on here with us today, who's the Community Manager of the DevTest Lisa community. And today we are going to talk about how to remove constraints for faster API development. First up will be Alan Baptista, who is the Principal Product Marketing for Service Virtualization. We'll also hear from Bill Oakes, who's the Director of Product Marketing for API Management, as well as Ian Kelly, who is the Director of Product Management. So I will pass it over to Alan, who will get us started today. Thanks, Alan, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I forgot to mention, if you have any questions at all during the presentation, you can post them in the chat window or the Q&A window, or you can wait until the end of the presentation where we'll open up the line for live Q&A. All right, Alan, go ahead and get started.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's my pleasure to be here with Bill and Ian to introduce to you, hopefully, some new concepts about service virtualization for those on the API management community. And so that the ones from the service virtualization community, maybe they can understand how better integrate these two and utilize the two tools from CA in removing constraints for faster API development. So thank you all for attending this session today. Hopefully you are well aware of CA's positioning in and around the application economy. So it is our belief that any and every organization today is an organization in the application economy, is modified, is impacted by the realities of software development and mobility and other types of applications that are either strategic in nature or fundamentally important on their day-to-day businesses. So software is eating the world, as Mark Anderson mentioned. Every organization now is a software house or development. Here are some of the stats that we fundamentally support in terms of our understanding of how public cloud is impacting organizations, how mobility is becoming more and more important aspects of day-to-day business in any industry today, and how APIs are becoming an impact in this diverse world of what we like to call spaghetti and meatballs of network and configuration and legacy and new platforms and all the complexities that come along and you are all well aware of. So when we talk about how applications are changing the world today, we see that many organizations can impact from streaming of videos. Entertainment is now delivered on a bandwidth. Payment processing is definitely changed into mobility payments, your Apple Pay and other similar payment processing organizations that didn't exist. Or even Uber is challenging what transportation was for taxis, is fundamentally changing without the impact of any infrastructure. How are they impacting this organization? And even Airbnb for hotel and hospitality industry, how that new player in this new reality of software, how they are changing the world. So if all these are new, what's really the problem that we see happening? Well, there's an expectation of unprecedented speed. So in the recent survey that we did with Vance and Bourne, 94% of the executives face this increased pressure to release applications more quickly, even with maintaining a higher level of expectation in terms of customer experience. So 25% of users will abandon a web application or even a mobile app if they're not satisfied within the few seconds, or there's a few second delay in the delivery of the information or the experience that they're looking for. So there's a quality and speed expectations that organizations are having to live under. And how do we see this winning in this application economy is truly not only through speed and quality. So you have to improve your speed and quality in order to demonstrate your competitive advantage, to really fundamentally support your customer loyalty and retention, and acquire new customers as other competitors may not be living up to that speed and quality. And the delivery cost, you're expected to do more with less, or in this reality. So this digital transformation is how we see your new reality in this application economy. This evolution now is expected of business innovation, your ability to quickly create new business channels or even new business models, as we discussed earlier, for Uber or for Airbnb as a couple of examples. So we'll be talking about our DevOps portfolio more in this agile parallel development area that we've seen in our trifecta for development, our DevOps portfolio around CA. It's really around building and managing reliable and scalable apps faster with better quality to marketplace. So these market-leading solutions in their respective quadrants and waves, service virtualization and API management, are what we're going to be talking about, and how a few use cases and how they best play together. So please keep those questions coming in, or any concerns or comments you have. They're more than welcome. I'll hand it over to Bill now.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. And I want to offer up front my apologies to all listeners listening to this voice this morning. It's just a few seconds away from going into full laryngitis, so I'm going to endeavor to get through this as quickly as possible while still passing on information. So Alan noted earlier that as the app economy has gelled, the original focus was on throughput, speed, and quality, but speed and quality, as Alan pointed out, are now table stakes. You can improve both, helping your competitive posture in the marketplace, and doing this is essential in today's market. You just have to do it. But you need to get to a point where you begin creating game-changing innovations, and that can only be done through digital transformation. So you hear that phrase a lot. What exactly does it mean? Well, the best definition I've seen personally is from the Altimeter Group, and they basically state, reading directly off the slide, the realignment of or new investment in technology and business models to more effectively engage the digital customers at every touch point in the customer experience lifecycle. So pretty straightforward. Alignment of resources to more effectively engage digital customers regardless of their endpoint being their mobile device or desktop, whatever they happen to be going with. In order to accomplish that, you need a digital platform. You need something that provides omni-channel delivery regardless of the endpoint, like we just said. Something that provides a new generation of composite apps and APIs. Alan mentioned some great ones with Airbnb and Uber, completely rocking their industries. There's other ones. Waze is brilliant if you haven't played with it. It gathers data from about 8 different resources, including the federal government, to figure out the best way to get you from point A to point B on top of just being a standard GPS. Integration of in-house and external data and systems. Now, here's a reality. If you're an enterprise that's been around for a while, you probably have a mainframe in the background somewhere, and realistically, mainframes don't know what a mobile device is. They don't know what a cloud-based solution is. So how do you integrate that? And you need a digital platform to accomplish it. Software development, we'll talk more about that in just a minute. End-to-end security from top to bottom. There are cases where you don't need security, but invariably with corporate data, you have to have some element. The CISO has mandated that. You got to figure out how to make that happen. You need a high-performance infrastructure, and you need some way of incorporating communities and partners. And the cornerstone of accomplishing that is all digital transformation. So, excuse me. Let's take a look at the building blocks of digital transformation real quickly. If you think of most enterprises, you have 2 things. You have inside and you have outside. Outside, you have the IoT, definitely an emerging solution. You have mobile, which is taking over the market by storm. You have SaaS and cloud. You have partner ecosystems, and you have external developers. So that's outside your firewall. Within the enterprise, you have your data, the most single important thing that the enterprise has. You have an application portfolio, you have some type of identity and access management solution, reporting and analytics, and you have internal teams. And what most enterprises need is the ability to create a solution that allows you to securely integrate everything within the enterprise and outside the enterprise. If needed, end-to-end security, but also wouldn't it be great in that as a part of that solution that you create a better developer ecosystem where they can more quickly churn out and test applications. And I mentioned the data before. Wouldn't it be really cool if you had a solution that allows you to monetize that data if it makes sense? So with CA, what we've done is we've delivered the ability to integrate everything. And this is true for most API management solutions today. The ideas, SOA and ESB are phenomenal infrastructures in most enterprises today, but they don't understand how to connect to the outside world. An API management solution allows you to do that, as well as aggregate data to drive a better user experience and build scalable connections. Securing the open enterprise is not just about end-to-end security for apps, mobile, and IoT, but also the ability to plug in literally to your existing identity and access management infrastructure and utilize it. And also protect against threats, not threads, I'm not sure how that happened, and OAuth vulnerabilities. A good API management solution also allows you to accelerate your mobile and IoT development, simplifying access to data, whether you want it ad hoc, developer access, or tightly controlled. That's really up to the enterprise and how they implement it. But also allows you to build a wider partner ecosystem that could possibly be building apps for you in your stead or in your proxy, whatever word you want to use, to access that valuable data that you have. And that allows you to unlock the value of it and possibly monetize it to generate revenue. There are many examples of this taking place today, and for the certain companies, it's a great opportunity. Now, there are challenges, though, with API management. Excuse me. Possibly some of you have heard this phrase before, and usually it's uttered with a lot of other four-letter words. And I'll be frank, API management isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world, starting with firewalls. Most IT administrators aren't really thrilled about any additional holes being drilled into the firewall. And going and asking for that can be quite challenging. Diversity of backend systems, I mentioned before. Mainframes don't know what mobile is. They don't know what cloud or certainly IoT is. So dealing with that can be very challenging. And then clients and servers change at different rates all of the time, and the ability to constantly monitor that and adjust for it with your API management solution can be very, very challenging. What CA has done is delivered an API management solution that really resolves these problems. The gateway acts as a guard to the enterprise, essentially allowing security or the EA or another appropriate party to delegate proxy implementation. It's a reverse proxy model that provides another level of security so that people can't get directly into the enterprise. They have to go through this. High performance policy enforcement decision point. It is incredibly screaming performance, and more importantly, it integrates with your existing infrastructure. And by that, I don't just mean we plug in whether you want it to be SaaS, hybrid, on-prem, whatever, but also it needs to plug directly into your back-end resources such as databases, your identity and access management solution, whatever it happens to be. So API management is nothing more than a policy language for processing APIs. That is literally all it is. But in doing so, what CA has done is really focused on the security side on top of everything else. So full authentication and authorization, confidentiality and integrity of the application, the device, and the user, full threat detection, rate limiting, traffic shaping, SLAs, that's pretty standard for any API management solution, full auditing because the CISO invariably wants this, transformation and adaptation. I mentioned that mainframes don't know what a mobile device is. We do. We talk to the mobile device in the format that it wants to talk, and then we talk to the back end in the format it needs to talk. So we handle that transformation and adaptation for you. And then I mentioned before, integrating with existing infrastructure. Again, it doesn't matter to us whether you want it in SaaS, hybrid, or on-premises, we take care of you. So a typical deployment is invariably in the DMZ. You do see more than one gateway there. There's a reason for that. You could arguably put in just a single gateway implementation, whether it's a VM or a hardware device or whatever. But you want load balancing, you want some kind of failover protection, and that's why most people do at least 2 gateways. I mentioned before, however you want to implement it, deployment is really your option. The other key component we have as part of the overall API management solution is our portal. And really this is all about providing access for developers to the designated APIs that they're authorized access to. It makes it incredibly easy to discover, learn how to use, and deploy APIs. And again, deployment model is up to you. Some good examples of what we do for you, though, we really go after trying to simplify your API design time. A great example of that is we know most developers don't care, don't want to learn about security. So if an EA or security officer or whoever happens to design an API or an API group that handles all security, let's say enforcing VPN, requiring monitoring of web-based threats, requiring FSO to a specific IAM system, the developer can just click on that API and actually generate the code based on the language that he happens to use, copy that code over and paste it into his application. Completely eliminates having to go down and spend some study time on learning how to deal with a security solution. So the portal is something that is designed for the customer, by the customer. It's completely white box. So here you have 3 very real examples of C API developer portals. You have GMs, you have Adobe's, and you have Savvis. They're actually exactly the same back end, but as you can see, the front end is radically different and personalized to that individual customer. Very simple to do. The last thing I'll mention is that concept of monetizing data that I brought up at the very beginning. What the developer portal allows you to do is actually create models and plans. Go in and theorize what kind of money you'd like to make for or from a developer using your data. Model those plans, and if you get to where you like the current model, you click on publish this, and boom, that model is now in place. It's a great way to start building on the concept of monetizing data. The last thing I'm going to touch upon, and then I'll get rid of this voice off your phone system, is we know that most people aren't walking into this with full knowledge of how to deal with API management, how to design great APIs, etc. So the API Academy is essentially acting as a third-party service to give you API education. What they do is look at the goals that most enterprises have of design best practices, the right architecture, the right business casing, security and management expertise, and any kind of promotion if you're trying to get more people to develop to your APIs. And what they deliver is complete design training, courseware, great workshops around the world, great online materials, support for any kind of API promotion that you want to go out with, and security guidance. So in summary, real quickly, I mentioned at the very beginning, CA addresses specific critical application economy needs, enabling app developers, accelerating app delivery, and embedding security. Huge for developers not to have to know this up front. Integrate anything to anything. That's a big deal when you're trying to deal with outside to inside the enterprise. Protecting applications end-to-end or any point in between. And finally, the ability to actually monetize your APIs and your your corporate data, advanced analytics, great plans and modeling, and a complete billing system. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Alan.
Thanks, Bill. Now that we've level set the understanding of what we view as API management, I want to set the same for those that are not up to speed or not familiar with our service virtualization offering. And then after this, we'll hand it over to Ian Kelly, our product manager, that has worked on the beauty of having both products working in conjunction, right, in synchronous way. So we're just reverting back to the digital transformation on how speed and quality is not the fundamental important aspect anymore. It's truly that business innovation. So we're going to talk on how service virtualization can help you create new applications, new frontiers, new business channels, and even business models faster. So our vision is that service virtualization is this catalyst of digital transformation, and it's fundamentally supported by three main pillars, where you're able to accelerate application delivery. You are working to instill this concept of pervasive quality or continuous quality, and you're able to drive this development efficiency by providing developers everything they need, when they need it, where they need it. So, and we'll go into a little more detail on this front. So service virtualization, why it's needed. So we see from our customer experience that there are 4 areas of major, what we call constraints. So we also hear from our customers that they can't do anything until they have everything, and they never, ever have everything readily available. So it revolves around these constraints. They can be one of 4 things, the most common ones we see. So they can be where it's systems constraint, where you may not have access to a system. Maybe it's a system of record. Maybe it's a fundamental system of support like a mainframe, or it's a third-party system that you can't access. So this representation on this image is trying to show you what a typical architecture might look like, right? So on the top tier, you'll have a mobility UI or a web UI working its way down to the second tier, an application level layer, or that is going through this enterprise service bus, and ultimately accessing the back end with this system of record, this database, this mainframe, or an ERP of sorts, a choice, or accessing a third-party system. And you may have the system constraints for availability of the system. You may also have what we call data constraints, which is revolving around setting up a test data and the delays and the time it really takes in order to set up appropriate test cases. And then once you run through the test, you basically have to rinse and repeat for additional testing. The cost constraints are when you're talking around accessing third parties outside of your organization that may charge per access for touch points. So those are maybe a fraction of a cent or so, but when you're doing a performance level testing, those cents add up pretty fast. And what we call this parallel development constraint, which has come more and more to the forefront with agile methodologies of development, where you're splitting up larger teams into smaller subgroups and working on subcomponents of an application. So those subcomponents have, to a certain point, a codependency. So team A is working on something that team B is waiting for them to finish so they can start doing their work, and so on and so forth down the pipeline. So if A works for some reason delayed a little bit, team B has to wait even longer for that access. So the inability to work in parallel that these development teams have is what we call this parallel development constraint. So how does service virtualization help eliminate these constraints? So essentially, let's take this order management system as an example, which accesses these back-end systems, these mainframes, ERPs, and so on, from a web portal. And this agile development ability, or this wait time, is the constraint. The availability of the mainframe, the synchronization of test data, or the capacity of a sandbox for an SAP environment, or even the cost you have accessing a third-party system. So CA service virtualization comes in, essentially listens man in the middle to what transactions are happening, what the requests are, and what the responses are. It learns within the system. It can use logs to capture that data. It doesn't have to be man in the middle. It can use logs. It can use WSDLs. It can use requirements documentation. So there are a series of ways on how we capture this knowledge and then essentially create this virtual version of that real system and replace it in a facsimile or simulation that is good enough for that order management system that's the system under test. At this example, they're able to test and continue the work as if they were accessing this real thing. So essentially, you're having everything you need when you need it at that point in time. So these constraints are no longer. So you're essentially able to shave off 25 to 50% of your development time frame. And we've seen customers also mention that they've been able to find 60 to 90% more defects at least one stage earlier in the development lifecycle because they have the resources they need when they are developing or testing those systems. And those mistakes or those bugs or those issues are found while you're working and not waiting till integration down the pipeline and then have to come back to development and testing to close this vicious cycle until quality is ultimately pushed out the door. So essentially, that's the facsimile, or the analogy we make is to a wind tunnel, where you would have components of an airplane, be it the tip of the airplane or the wing component or other subcomponents of the plane, are tested and under various different conditions of temperature and pressure in this virtual reality that's the wind tunnel. So essentially, substitute the wind tunnel for this virtual version, this virtual world, virtual services, that becomes the wind tunnel of software. You're able to test and develop and create these virtual versions of systems that you may not have access to, that are costly, or that don't have the capacity and performance levels you need for performance level testing. Remember, you can ask questions on the chat and question tabs if you have anything that you would like to understand further. So when we talk about shift left, and this chart is a summary of this, is you typically see this quality effort happening on the right-hand side, close to performance and integration, sometimes in user acceptance, and the reality is sometimes even in performance. So it's way to the right-hand side of this. So this is without SV. You have this almost linear dependency of development from the various teams that we talked about. So with service virtualization, what we see happen is this shift left. So we see that the quality effort in that yellow line is happening a lot sooner in the SDLC. It's moving from integration to component testing or to system testing, where you're seeing the quality effort moving to the left. And because you're working in parallel, the development teams and integration testing teams and so on are able to work because they have everything they need at that point in time, that you can almost work in parallel. And that shaves off, again, 25 to 50% off your SDLC in terms of wait times and reworks and whatnot. So this is where we see this time to market as a key factor, but also the quality is higher because you're able to find more defects sooner when it's cheaper and easier to resolve them. So that's essentially the shift left basis of our storyline. And then in terms of some of the efficiencies, we recently did a VOC report that studied the return on investment of service virtualization. We interviewed over 500 organizations that are currently using service virtualization, and these are some of the findings that they found. 65% of the respondents had provided unrestricted access to services and components after using service virtualization. And they've seen a reduction, 44% saw a reduction in OPAC, and 35% saw a reduction in third-party access fees. So this truly demonstrates how you can save time on average. Before using service virtualization, they had a required wait time for systems of around 32 days. And after service virtualization, because you have virtual versions of what you need when you need them, it went down to 1 single day. So it's very impressive, and we have customer after customer that will has proven this value of better quality applications to market faster and more efficiently done. here is what we see some of those customers saying in terms of what is possible. There was one customer that saw a 75% increase in application deployment time, 90% increase in testing platform availability. We've seen one customer that saved 2 months out of their testing time, 40% cost saving through infrastructure optimization, and 75% reduction of test data setup time effort. So these are the customers, these are the stories, and those are all public case studies that have validation points around these. So these are very impressive numbers, some very impressive customers on the work they've been doing with service virtualization. So now that hopefully you understand the basis of API management and service virtualization, now you're wondering how do they best work together. And Ian Kelly is the resident expert and will guide you through these. And as I mentioned before, please, if you have questions on the QA panel or the chat box, we are monitoring those. So please do post them so we can start the Q&A portion as soon as possible. Ian, take it away.
And Ian, when you want to advance a slide, just let me know and I'll forward for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Alan and Bill, for the great setup here. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today is really how we gain even more advantage than what you saw that some of our customers have had, like Nordstrom's and such, and take that advantage and increase that by adding the APIM space and some of the synergy within those use cases. So go ahead and advance, Bill, and we're going to go through 3 basic structures around these synergies. And I do have my QA window open. You can ask a question in there. I can answer it either while I talk or we can wait till the end. So a couple of items here within these different phases or stages of the work that we're doing every day to deliver the software. Within the plan stage, we'll go over some capabilities that we have to help expose and create better awareness of the APIs that are available for your business to leverage. So much of software these days isn't building large monolithic systems. It's actually leveraging existing components. And having a great catalog of those existing components supercharges your development effort. Next, in the build, when we talk about actually constructing these services and making sure that we're building good applications on top of this, we're going to talk about switching between virtualized backends and implemented backends. And then finally, in the plan, we're going to talk about, or run, sorry, we're going to talk about, my QA window was over that. We're going to talk a little bit about how we create better and better services from some of our production data or production-like data. So you can advance the slide there again, Bill. So in our first one under plan, we have the ability to create a virtual service catalog that not only has all of your implemented or physical services, but also your virtualized services. And the API developer portal allows you to pull all of those infrastructures together, all of those metadata together, to where you can have users search and find, are there things about products? Do we have recommendations? Do we have customers? Do I have plans that customers fall under? All of the different business domains that you work with every day, this lets you catalog and expose those in something that is part design time and part runtime, because as these change in production and as these change in the virtualized environment, your lower environments like dev, test, QA, and UAT, you'll see updates of these within your API developer portal. You can also manage access. So we can say, hey, we built a virtual service. We wanted to help team XYZ leverage this virtual service, but we noticed that they haven't been using that. They haven't logged in, they haven't created an account, or their API key hasn't received any transactions. Maybe we need to reach out to that team and make sure that they, A, are aware that there's a virtual service we created for them, B, that they know how to bind to it and utilize it, and then C, how they can be successful with that virtualized service. So how can we create a better service offering to our internal users throughout this portal? You can also use this portal for public users, and we're going to talk a little bit about a mobile sandbox, but you can use this for public users to give them sandboxes or lower environments that they can leverage and utilize from outside your company. So if you have public APIs, you can provide a testing API that provides specific functionality that they may be looking for. You may not want to give them transactional production access to just try some software out or as they develop. So as we move forward into the next slide under build, I think we have 4 slides here. Yeah, so mobile sandbox was one of the things that I was talking about really in the last under plan. Mobile sandbox allows us to build an environment that looks like one of our production systems without impacting our production system. Sometimes these are done for training. So if I have 20 people or 50 people or 150 people that I need to train on the system, and I don't really have a training environment available, I can virtualize the services that that application leverages, and I can use this sandbox to make sure that those users on a specific day, I can use API management policy by day or by user account via their LDAP lookup for the API, or by many other means, by the contents of the messages and things like that. And I can use that to create a difference in how that's routed to a virtualized backend. That virtualized backend can be very robust, can support all of my business needs for that testing environment or that sandbox environment for third-party developers. And it can also have unique scenarios, specifically things around their known errors or known incident scenarios that we want to make sure that folks get trained on and they understand how to deal with them, or how that third party or that customer may need to leverage its solution in a specific date and time. Sometimes it's days of the month, and if you have a travel reservation system and you want to use the last day of the month, and February and leap years has one more day, you want to have a system that can make every year a leap year. So those are some things that you can do within that mobile sandbox. Go forward one more, Bill. The next thing, which I've already hit on a little bit in that usage of the mobile sandbox, is intelligently route your service requests. So you can use a training user account or something like that, and you can use that user account to go to the virtualized backend. You can do it based upon the data, based upon the service call, based upon anything that you can access within policy. So we've had systems in my former career within e-commerce retail where we virtualized a back end for a mobile application that we delivered to Apple. And the virtualized back end was what Apple tested and what they responded with. It took them about 2 weeks to go through that application and put that application into the Apple Store. Once they put that application into the Apple Store, we actually flipped the routing to go to the physical service. So up until the time that customers actually were on the service, it was never going to the production APIs. It was going to a facsimile or a virtualized API. We didn't have to change any coding in the application. We didn't have to notify Apple of a change. We didn't have to change any of our backend configuration. We simply put a date identifier that says on October 31st at midnight, it will flip over and start going to the production system instead of the virtualized system. So we could do our performance testing. Apple could do their functional testing. We could do all of this work right up until the last moment when the API gateway flipped the switch. That intelligent routing can be hugely powerful in even more phases than we're talking about today. We have some other conversations and some other materials that cover some of that routing capabilities. Go ahead with the next slide there, Bill. The last one here, I believe, is the faster creation and easier maintenance of virtualized services. So let's put ourselves in the position of a team that's virtualized an order management API. We virtualized that order management API for a project, and that project was 8 months ago. So sometimes those virtualized APIs can get a little stale. The gateway allows us to take upper environment, higher environment traffic, or even production traffic, and make facsimile copies of the data that's flowing through to help update our virtualized service. So virtualized services are created through a pretty smart little process that takes a lot of the instances of calling that service and creates a model from those. So as that model changes over time, it can update the service. We can update the service model by getting new examples. So let's say the first day of every month, you go into your production services and you take the first let's say 100 examples that come across the wire, and you update your virtual services. It can give you a very quick update and upgrade of all of your virtual environments. Or if you're using CA release automation, you can add a step that actually starts capturing these API gateway metrics and bodies and puts them into service virtualization after every deploy. So once you deploy a new application to production, you can watch that traffic through the gateway and update your virtualized environment. It gives you a very, very high fidelity between what's in production and what your developers and testers and your entire organization is building off of. So it's a huge value for your team. I think that's it for our slides there on the values and the synergies between them. Now we have some time for Q&A. If you're not able to ask your question during this session, please reach out to us. There's some contact information on the last slide. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks so much, guys. So if anyone has a question, you can enter it now in the chat window or the Q&A window, or you can hit the little phone icon with a question mark, and that'll basically raise your hand to unmute your line, or you can actually unmute it yourself by pressing #6 or *6, then ask a question over the line. So if you have a question, please do so at this time.
Hi, this is Bill. So one question that just came through is I mentioned API management with a gateway and a portal. And the question was, does the portal come with the gateway? And the answer is, it depends. In general, if you're buying an on-premises solution, you're buying your gateway, and if you feel the portal is appropriate, then you would add on the portal. However, if you're buying our SaaS-based solution, you actually get both at the same time.
Okay, thanks, Bill. I just opened up a poll to rate today's webcast, so please answer that when you get a chance.
We have, while we wait for other questions, one common question that we see around service virtualization, and depending on your experience, is how different is it from mocks and stubs? Because, yeah, developers are used to doing mocks and stubs, but how different is it really? Imagine, well, the way we kind of describe it in that case is that mocks and stubs have certain limitations in how they are used, especially after you're doing unit testing. They can't be used in performance testing. They cannot be used shared when they're shared and you have to modify. Or even conceptually, why should you be doing these codes for testing code's sake and not using this intelligent tool that really captures the behavior of your application and can be replicated, shared, maintained, updated, and used in different environments, even on the performance level testing. So that's one common question that we've seen come to fray. Ian, in the APIM and service virtualization conversation, do you have any question that comes up more often than not?
Well, I just wanted to add one thing. The other part is you typically, to build a mock or a stub, you have to know so much about that interface. And your awareness of the interface is typically fleeting. You know about it at a point in time when you created it. And organizations are constantly moving, right? A rolling stone gathers no moss. These are not services and APIs that you can look at, years old documentation and say, this represents what the service in the API is. So much you hear people say, hey, go and read the manual or look at our documentation. But the documentation is almost always out of date because we're deploying so continually and it's behind. One of the, to stop addressing the point that you already made, Alan, and address the question that you had for me, is it starts to create, a lot of people listen to the synergy between those two products, and it starts to spawn some other capabilities and really architectures that open up some new opportunities for you to deliver software better. So the ability to route to multiple back-end endpoints without changing the client binding, which is just a standard bread and butter capability of the API management suite, really starts changing when and how you start doing integration testing and where you do integration testing. So when we talk about the rise of containers and things like that, people love containers because the configuration is somewhat locked. I don't have on my local machine the binding for the API be localhost and port 8080. Where then when I deploy it to my dev environment or my test environment, that's configuration detail that needs to change. So if that needs to change every time, I need to make sure that that's actually modified every time. The worst thing that can happen is that file that says localhost gets into your production configuration. And you're wondering why that web server isn't serving up that page properly. Well, it's because it still thinks it's on the developer's machine. Well, if you can start early and make sure that your bindings are actually pointing to the right locations, but you can intelligently route that traffic, you can reduce the things that you're changing as you promote your code through the environments. That and many more.
Yeah, one aspect, if you're not familiar with service virtualization and want to give it a try, there's an opportunity for you to play along, I guess, in what we call Virtual API or VAPI. So I would steer you to the site. It's vapi.ca.com. It's a great resource for you to fiddle around, see what other people are doing, and essentially utilize and create your own virtual services. You can share them. It's a GitHub-based solution, so I do strongly advise that you should take a look at it. It's vapi.ca.com. I'll post it on the chat so that you can have access to that. Are there any questions? Please make sure to post on the chat or the Q&A.
I did see one person wanted to ask a question. I tried to unmute their line. If you press #6 or *6, you can unmute your line. I believe the question was coming in from Somnath. So Somnath, if you can unmute your line, you can ask the question over the phone. They asked in the chat window, any roadmap to have this as SaaS, like you have API Developer Portal?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
It says, any roadmap to have this as SaaS, like you have API Developer Portal?
Are you saying SaaS?
Yes, SaaS.
Sure. So last fourth quarter of last calendar year, we started shipping our API management solution in the cloud. It's called CA API Management SaaS. It is a combination of our gateway coupled with our developer portal with a brand new interface, a brand new UI, I should say, to make it much easier and more dynamic. It automatically adjusts for mobile users, for instance. But yeah, that's been shipping since last year. There are ongoing enhancements. It's a SaaS-based solution, so typical SaaS solutions, they're on-the-fly enhancements. But there's a whole series slated over this summer and culminating with a rather noisy announcement at CA World that I can't really comment on much more than that, but something to look forward to. But no, that is available today.
And for service virtualization, we have customers that have deployed their licenses and structure and infrastructure in the cloud. We are also going to be announcing and demonstrating and talking about some other cloud-based offerings around CA World. So make sure to consider joining if you haven't. There's a $500 discount for community members, by the way, if you didn't realize that. So do make sure you register before September. Any other questions?
I don't see any more in the Q&A or the chat window. Again, if you have a question, you can also ask over the phone line by pressing #6 or *6. And if you think of a question after today's call, you can post them in the security or the dev test communities. Another question came in from Samnas. We're in the process of having CA CloudMinder SOLN where we've API gateway as well. Will the same gateway be used? Solution. We're in the process of having CA CloudMinder solution where we've API gateway as well. Will the same gateway be used?
Yeah, it would be the same gateway talking to either. We don't really care what the backend identity and access management solution is. Obviously, we like CloudMinder and SiteMinder, but we talk to all of them through the same gateway.
All right. If there are no other questions, we can close this webcast today. We'll post the recording of the webcast as well as the slides to the API and dev test community. I want to thank Bill, Ian, and Alan, our presenters today, and we will reach out to you all via email with links to that content as well in case you missed it in the community itself.
And thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to attend this. We appreciate it.
Well said.
Yeah, thank you all for giving us a chance to talk to you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Have a great day.